Hello, this is Rural New Yorker with RivalNewYork.com. As a kid, I used to enjoy doing a comparison between the Yankees and Mets, and I would try to convince myself that from an all-around perspective, Ray Ordonez was better than Derek Jeter, and then Derek Jeter was still there, and then Jose Reyes versus Derek Jeter. I think I had a little bit more to say there from a skill set, five-tool presence type of perspective, keeping intangibles such as rings and clubhouse presence out of it. But in all honesty, other than catcher, the Mets really didn't compete in a lot of different ways. I mean, they did have Olerud, Edgardo Alfonso, Ventura, the probably the best defensive infield that has ever, that the game has ever seen, or arguably one of the best, depending upon what's perspective. If you're a Mets fan, you think it's one of the best. But honestly, the 90s Yankees and the 2000 Yankees, it was a stretch. They've been juggernauts, and that's why they've won so many World Series. Well, now we have two different things. The Mets were in the World Series, a year ago, and had suffered injuries, and probably will find themselves making another run at the World Series once again with their starting rotation and some of the investments they made. Well, the Yankees are more in a rebuilding situation, but there's some upsides to some of the young players because they really, Cashman did a phenomenal job of bringing in a prospect haul, with Gleyber Torres, Clint Frazier, to name a couple. And then they go back and sign Aroldis Chapman. So the point is that I want to make is it's very interesting when you actually compare all the positions one against another. I actually ranked 5 of the Yankees positions winning and 5 of the Mets, so I think this should be interesting. So first, let's get right into catching. Gary Sanchez, Travis d'Arnaud, that's not even a question. The optimism around Gary Sanchez and what he accomplished in 20 home runs and 229 at bats is roughly a 500 for a catcher who we'll see sometime maybe at DH. 50 home run average. Obviously, even if he hits 15, he's probably done better than Travis d'Arnaud. So this is a quick, easy decision. Gary Sanchez, all around right now, currently a better player than Travis d'Arnaud. That's one Yankees. From a first base perspective, Greg Bird, Carter, recently signed Carter, which I thought was a steal, $3 million for 40 home run potential, and Matt Holliday are all being grouped in at first base, even though Holliday's more of an outfielder and will be the DH, I assume, with Carter, mix and matching. You put them up against Lucas Duda, or even a Lucas Duda-Wilmer Flores platoon, even though Duda's had a 30 home run year. It just doesn't compare. Holliday, Carter, and Greg Bird are probably going to produce more because Duda will go down with an injury. You could see Jay Bruce or Conforto playing first base. I have to, even though neither one is a real sexy pick, I have to go with first base going to the Yankees. Second base was a little bit tougher, and it was a strength for both teams. Shortstop and second were strength for both teams. Starlin Castro had 21 home runs. Neil Walker had 23 home runs in less games. Starlin Castro had a 270 average. Neil Walker had a 282 average. The difference here being that Neil Walker, he's playing he's playing in a walk year after he signed the offer. He's making a nice little paycheck right now because he did it just like Matt Wieters did last year. The Mets are probably kicking themselves, even though it's nice to have him. They could have slotted Wilmer Flores in or another, Jose Reyes if Wright is going to have a impact, which is the next position we'll talk about. But the point is Neil Walker, it definitely gets the edge here with what he potentially will bring because Starlin Castro hasn't produced in his career the same way Neil Walker has. Neil Walker's got a 20 home run, 162 game average, while Starlin Castro has 13. Starlin Castro is coming off a number of poor years with the Cubs where he got lost in the sauce out there with Javier Baez and Ben Zobrist. Obviously he came in to take his place, but the point is he almost found himself without a position, comes to the Yankees, produces. I think he'll have another decent year, but I think Neil Walker is going to, in his walk year and on a much, and I'm sorry to say it, but a much better Mets team, he's going to produce a little bit higher. I haven't been able to say a much better Mets team in a very long time when comparing him to the Yankees. Third base, Chase Headley. this were 2012, this would be a different story. But Chase, maybe not. I mean, that's David Wright was playing well in 2012. But, Chase Headley had 115 RBIs in 2012, but in the last 2 years he had 51 last year and 62 the year before. The David Wright-Jose Reyes combination slotting in at third versus Chase Headley and his subpar 250, average. Just the fact that defensively, can't go either way. But Reyes is going to is going to make the Mets run. Not the run game necessarily, but the Mets, like the Boston Boston runs on Dustin. Duncan and Dustin. Dunkin' Donuts coffee. That sort of is a better saying for Jose Reyes with what he's meant to the team. With him atop the lineup, he even more so before he was here. But we saw it last year. When he's in the game, triple potential is still there on every swing. He can still steal bases. He just has to pick his spots a little bit better versus running on every single time he gets to first base. But he's going to have a greater impact on the Mets this year than Chase Headley will, all around. So we're going to have to give that one to the Mets. So that right now we're at 2-2. Catcher, first base, Yankees, second, third, Mets. Shortstop was a lot more was difficult, and if you look at last year's numbers, just offensive numbers, you'd have to give it to the Mets, but we're not just trying to look at this one way. I mean, Asdrubal Cabrera might have had 23 home runs to Didi's 20 and had a 280 average to Didi's 276, but, it's not just about that because Asdrubal Cabrera is likely going to regress from last year, even though he should be healthy because he's getting older, while Didi Gregorius became an all-star essentially. He's now playing, he's probably arguably one of the best players on the Yankees, and he's now elevating himself to hitting in the 3-hole potentially, maybe number 2 because he's not going to hit for as much power. But in the field, he's a whiz in the field. I mean, he's no Ray Ordonez or Ozzie Smith, but he is a very, or even Andrelton Simmons, but he's a very good shortstop. I remember when the Diamondbacks were, putting him out there and the Mets were interested, and I was paying very close attention to it, and I was like, let's get one of these shortstops from Arizona. And then I hear the Yankees did it, and I was like, of course they would. I wanted the Mets to do that, and the Yankees make a smart move. So I'm going to give this one to the Yankees. So you got Didi, Greg first base, and catcher, so it's now 3-2. But then you get to the outfield. Outfield is, it's left field is really there's really no comparison there. I mean, you got Yoenis Cespedes, 280 average, 86 RBIs, 31 home runs, and he missed 30 games. I mean, that would be a great season for somebody who played full season. Then you have Brett Gardner, first, one of the first times and for the most part non-injured year, had under 20 stolen bases. He did have 80 runs, which is strong, and a 260 average. You need more from a potential leadoff hitter. And for someone with his skill set, he's not mashing home runs. He's not, So you have to give it to Yoenis Cespedes. I don't think I need to say much more there. Center field, maybe I was generous, and I'm working off of previous, expectations that the Yankees had when they signed him. But Jacoby Ellsbury, I'm going to have to give it to the Yankees with Jacoby, even though he had 263 average, 20 stolen bases, 71 runs. And Curtis Granderson had 30 home runs, 237 average, which isn't great, and 59 RBIs, which is piss poor the way that it's looked at. For every home run, you need at least 2. You need to have at least 2 RBIs, is the way it's looked at. Otherwise, you're like a solo home run monster, which is not what you want to be. You want to be someone. If you have 30 home runs, you should have over 70, RBIs. So the point is, while you could give this to Curtis Granderson, I am actually going to bet on Jacoby Ellsbury having a strong year this year. I think that the Yankees know who they are now. They're not trying to fake it with A-Rod and Teixeira and Brian McCann, where they've got these guys who used to be perennial all-stars who are weighing them down. They know that they're a young team looking to build on things, and maybe they make a run, and maybe they surprise everyone and find themselves, in the ALCS with a chance to go to the World Series. It could happen. I think that they've got the talent starting to influx. I think their starting pitching is going to be the thing that primarily holds them back, and some learning curve that will happen with the player, the players in the field. But I'm going to give it to Jacoby Ellsbury. Then you look Jay Bruce, Aaron Judge. I mean, if Matt Holliday's out there instead, maybe that's a play that they try to do. You don't want Gardner in right field with his arm, but Aaron Judge versus Jay Bruce. Jay Bruce had 33 home runs and 99 RBIs. He might not have done well when he came to the Mets until the last week, but there's really no comparison to the 27 games, 4 home runs that Aaron Judge had. So at this point, it is, let me do my tally. It's 4-4. And now we get to the pitching, and this is where, you've got the battle of two armies. You've got the army of the Mets starting pitching of Syndergaard, DeGrom, Harvey, Matz, and Wheeler. Whether Wheeler, Gesellman, Lugo, they sort of combine for that 5th starting position. And then you go against Tanaka, Pineda, Sabathia, Severino, and Warren. I mean, it's not even close. I mean, what do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about which staff throws the hardest? Which staff has the better control? Which staff is younger? Which staff is cheaper? Which staff is better? I mean, the Mets, hands down, they recently, I don't think it was Fangraphs because I'm not high on them, so I don't think I would have taken it with much credibility. But recently, MLB.com, I think it was MLB.com, came out and said the Mets had the 3rd best starting rotation. I'd argue that. I mean, I believe the Cubs were in front of them, and I want to say the Boston Red Sox. Could be wrong on that. But either way, the point is that the Mets were number 3 and the Yankees weren't even, in the top 10. That's going to be a struggle for them. I mean, Tanaka could pitch the way Tanaka pitched 2 years ago, and he looked good. Pineda could come back and pitch well. Sabathia could give you some innings, and Severino could get back to where he was a year ago. But at this point, it's not even close. Mets starting rotation. Now, if the Mets were going against any other team, they have a very strong closer and setup man. But the Yankees have arguably the best in both of those areas. They have Aroldis Chapman, who is the best closer in Major League Baseball. Mariano Rivera's gone, so the Yankees, I guess, said, you know what, we still want the best closer. Bring Aroldis back. He's the best, triple digits. You saw what he did for the Cubs. Hopefully, they didn't abuse, the abuse that they have been that has been mentioned about the way that they handled him and the amount of innings that they had him pitch in that postseason to help them win and get out of their long World Series slump. Hopefully that doesn't affect the Yankees because that 5-year deal would be a problem. Hopefully they got insurance the way the Mets got David Wright insurance. But then on top of that, because that's a Familia versus Aroldis Chapman, I mean, that's easy. Aroldis Chapman, very high up. Familia's in the top 10, but not Aroldis Chapman. Then you have Dellin Betances. Dellin Betances was actually ranked in relief pitchers ahead of Familia. So right there, you have 2 pitchers better than the Mets too. I'd argue, because Dellin Betances, when he's got an opportunity to close, he has struggled. And that's what the concern is, and maybe that's why Cashman opened up his purse to bring in Aroldis Chapman back. I think there was other benefits. The super bullpen is what the Yankees are going to need that. But the Mets actually have a good 1-2 punch at the back of their bullpen. I mean, Familia had 43 saves, I believe, last year, and Reed had a 1.17 ERA in 15 and a 1.97 ERA last year. So I'm going to give it easily to the Yankees. I'm not even trying to, but the Mets have a good back there in rotation. So that wasn't tough for me. But the point is, I come to a 5-5 tie. So with that being said, this is definitely going to be a fun year, I think, for both teams. The Mets are going to be making that push with high expectations. The Yankees can sit back with, knowing that Toronto, has made some investments to try to, make a final 1 or 2 years push with Donaldson, Tulowitzki, bringing in Batista back. And then you got the Red Sox, who just, some of their young field players are going to be around for a while, and then they go out and bring in Chris Sale. Come on. Chris Sale and David Price on the same staff? Point is, I think that the Yankees will be extremely fun to watch, which is the way that Mets fans felt about some of their pitching staff about 2-3 years ago when Harvey started coming up, Wheeler started coming up, DeGrom is Rookie of the Year. So I think Gary Sanchez has a nice shot at the Rookie of the Year. And and it was fun doing this little analysis, learning a little bit more about the Yankees. I'm going to try to do some unbiased coverage. I hope you felt this was unbiased. I know I'm a little bit more knowledgeable on the Mets side of things, but we're going to similarly do this with having some Yankee fans look at the Mets. So it won't just be me talking about the Yankees and bragging about my Mets, because they are in a positive position right now. But either way, this is Royal New Yorker signing off of RivalNewYork.com. Check back in. We're going to still have some more football updates in conclusion of the Super Bowl. And we're going to look to try to get some fantasy baseball information up as you start to prepare. Both audio, video, and just some breakout analysis of our top rankings. So check back in and stay tuned.